We are happy to let you know that a very big, shall we say, campaign is underway to make sure that the world knows, not just here in TNT, but you here in TNT, but the world knows that there is brilliance in science right here emanating from Trinidad and Tobago. And let me specifically say good morning and welcome to our studio for the first time to the communication specialist from NIHERST, Miss Christiane Francois is with us, as well as Mr. Hollis Charles, who is the president of the Caribbean Academy of Science. So welcome to you both to our studio. Let's start with you, Christiane. Let's talk a little bit about NIHERST and what you've been up to over the past few years leading up to the NIHERST Awards, which we will be talking about, NIHERST Awards in Science and Technology.
Well, NIHERST has been in operation for about nearly 3 decades, and our mission has always been to promote and advance Trinidad and Tobago's capability in science and technology. So in the early decades, we did that in varied ways, sometimes through education, but through sponsoring research and development in key and core development areas and emerging areas. We did it in enhanced oil recovery, but also in biotechnology. This is in the 80s. So in the decades following that, we were also, just so that people know this, because people do remember us this way, we were the different colleges of the School of Languages and all that, which eventually merged, and we established COSTAT. So COSTAT came out of NIHERST, so that was the higher education part of NIHERST.
I see.
So in more recent decades, in the 90s and 2000s, we accelerated a science popularization initiative, which was to bring more people to demystify science, to make science less abstract. We set up the National Science Center, which is in Davide, and our mission has always been to raise the visibility of science, to bring science into a more approachable, get young people interested in science, because there's a big need as the world moves on globalized platforms that are driven by science and technology. Trinidad and Tobago, needs to build that capability. We need more than ever, more than even when NIHERST was set up. The pressure, the urgency of building scientific capability to diversify the economy away from oil and gas. So the innovation, the technological advancements that is needed has to come from the people, the ingenuity of the people, the creativity of the people, not necessarily only in scientific fields. It can be in artistic fields, but more and more science is impacting every single arena. So if you want to get onto the global arena and compete and create products and services that are, you just can't ignore the scientific,
the relevance of science
and innovative capabilities that are required for that kind of activity. So our drive, the government's drive, the ministry, we are under the Ministry of Science, Technology and Tertiary Education, and that is a huge drive now. So our mission over certainly in the last 15, 20 years has been to have this massive science popularization program, which has included the activities, exhibits, and bringing science to the people, bringing the people to science. We have road shows, we have Community Science Week, we have one coming up in Tabaki. So we take a little caravan mobile thing out to rural communities that may not be able to come. And all of it is towards showing that science is accessible, science is critical, science is science is everyone. It's not some ivory tower thing out there that you can be afraid of or should be afraid of. And in case of the awards, we started that initiative in 2006, which was pretty much to identify. It started as a Caribbean project because NIHERST has a lot of Caribbean links through the Caribbean Academy, through the Caribbean Academy of Sciences, but also through the Caribbean Council for Science and Technology. So we sort of penetrate, and in fact we are a regional leader. We are the regional leader in science popularization. So we drive things that the other islands sort of pick up on. And a lot of people from the regions come to our site Technofest to see how we're creating exhibits to bring science more alive.
So this is a wonderful way to let people know that there are Trinbagonians who've made incredible strides in science.
I mean,
have role models to look up to and see that there's a tangible form that we can all aspire to, a standard.
There's so many, and when we began the project, we didn't know who they were. I mean, I'll tell you honestly, we did not know. When we came out, it says, wow, we didn't know they had Trinis, and all over the world.
Well, Trinis find themselves everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody. That's I know Trinis tend to think, well, Trinis are everywhere, but everybody's everywhere. But for us, it was a revelation, well, for me anyway, working on the projects, to find out the caliber and the penetration of our scientists, both locally and abroad. And for example, last year she was known, but Trinidad and Tobago has a woman scientist that is very high up in NASA. And we brought her down last year, and she was hugely popular with the young people who met her. And she's, aerospace is and NASA is extremely glamorous, and but the fact is nobody knew. It's a very male-oriented institution, and science can be male-oriented. And we just produced a book highlighting the women and Caribbean women in science to show the penetration that's gone on.
I was just about to tell you that, bearing in mind I have to say initial because it's since been expanded, but we initially started off as Radio for Women, and now we're Radio for Women and the men who love us, but or love them. It would be remiss of me not to ask you about science and women and the role that we have played. And do you think that there's heightening interest on the part of the young scholars, female scholars, or is it still necessary or is it still important to have more interest? I guess there can never be enough, right?
I mean, I don't want to speak outside of my realm of authority in terms of statistics and education, but the growth trends have been obviously more women participating in more education and more higher education, and definitely more women in scientists. So there is in fact a male issue in the gender dynamics. There is now where the men and the boys, or let's say boys, are not engaging as highly, and so the girls are getting ahead. They are in science, they're everywhere. They say, and they meaning the global statistical reviews and literature, is that women penetrating to the very tippy top of any field actually. And I saw the CEO, who is a woman of Facebook, give a brilliant lecture on TED the other day about that it appears as if we've broken all the glass ceilings, but we haven't. So in science technology there is a kind of umbrella that we haven't sort of managed to get rid of, where we can't get beyond. But I can't speak with authority, I can't spiel out any statistics right now, but certainly if you look at it, women are in all the disciplines we've gone through but there are hardcore scientific enclaves where I suspect that they're still predominantly men. But that is changing. Women are in engineering and in hardcore science.
Well, so we're talking here today about the NIHERST Awards in Science and Technology, and you're here to tell us that you're making a public call for nominations,
yes,
right?
It's a really we've had these awards for about 6 years, and they're accompanied by the publications. So not only do we recognize the scientists, but we then record their lives and their achievements in publications for posterity, for generations to come to know what our scientific heritage is. So this is an act of not just preserving the scientific heritage, but building on it, because if the scientists become visible, if we know who all our celebrities are, we know who all our sporting heroes are, we know all our entertainers by name, we know what's going on with them. We have no idea, and I'm saying we. Generally, we don't know who our scientists. We don't know who our scientists are. We have no idea. And Hollis can tell us a little bit about why we should.
Definitely.
But from NIHERST point, just to quickly deal with the awards.
Sure.
What we want, and in 2012 we are issuing a call for nominations for 7 awards. We have awards for engineering, for natural sciences, medical sciences, innovation in the arts and culture, and junior scientists, junior scientist and junior engineer. So we have 7 categories, and they are named after celebrated, iconic scientists from Trinidad and Tobago. Some are well-known. Professor Kenny Award for natural scientists. He's kind of was visible in the public eye, so people knew him. Rujanath Kapildeo for mathematics is well-known. He's for the Applied Science Award. And but Cyprian Amoroso, who is a forerunner and a giant in his field in medical sciences, did seminal, groundbreaking work on placenta and on the placenta, human placenta development, neonatal development. Nobody knows him. So I mean, these are older icons. We also, one of my favorite icons is a guy called Conrad Lau in the early 1940s, and he was at QRC, and he left at 14 to say he wanted to go to MIT. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. He was brilliant. And he ended up being one of the leading aeronautical or aero design engineers, and created aircraft for World War II that helped the Allies.
Phenomenal.
Helped the Allies. He created phenomenal aircraft that helped the Allied campaign in the Pacific, and the Allies in the Pacific campaign. So they're just amazing, and they've been everywhere, and they're across the board in all kinds of fields. So what we want is, the deadline is the 28th of January for the nominations to be submitted. We really want the public to come forward and tell us who they know. And so if there's any doubt, well, I don't know if I know anybody big enough to get an award, don't question it. Yes. Don't doubt. If you have a friend or a family member who's working in an institution locally, for abroad, anywhere and anything, they're doing scientific activities, research, call us if you don't know, if you're not sure, or send in the application. We can, after the deadline date, if we want more information about them, we can find out. And and basically we can take it from there. The selection and the award selection will be rigorous, transparent. So it's not like, well, it's your friends, so we'll give them awards.
No curry fever going on.
Nothing like that.
No.
But we don't want the public to feel, well, I don't know anybody, because the people that we know are out there have friends and families that we know. So
how do they send the information to you?
Well, they can go online for the further information, which is they can check the NIHERST website, www.nihers.gov.tt. There's also, you can email us, awards@nihers.gov.tt, or call 622-7880, and we can guide you, we can give you more information. The online application form is online, and they can submit through, well, the different submission details will be on the application forms.
All right, and I'll tell you what we'll do after this interview. I'm going to post the contact information on our Facebook page so that,
fantastic.
Our listeners, if anybody comes to mind, or I'm sure that you're already thinking that, the wheels are turning, oh, my cousin did so-and-so, and my best friend is doing so-and-so and is lodged elsewhere in the world. We want to hear about them, and we want to give them a fair chance at being nominated for any of these fantastic awards. And we're talking about the NIHERST Awards in Science and Technology, of course, and we are also here. We are joined by a gentleman who is the president of the Caribbean Academy of Sciences. Now, you mentioned, Christiane, that NIHERST has teamed up with this body, and tell us in what way, and then, of course, we want to hear from you, Mr. Charles.
Well, Hollis can explain, but Hollis can also give a sense of why the scientific community, why the scientific heritage has to be recognized more, why they're coming with us, why are they on board with us. We know why we're on board with them. They're a truly well-established body, and bring an expertise and have a cadre of expertise available to us for all kinds of good purposes. But he can talk about what it means to them.
Please do, Mr. Charles. It's nice of you to join us today.
Yes, thank you. The Caribbean Academy, of course, is like any other Academy of Sciences, and we want to promote these kinds of initiatives, not only at NIHERST. And by the way, Christiana, as you talked about COSTAT, I remember that I was in fact chairman of the board of governors of NIHERST when we created COSTAT. So that's a link that I had.
To mention he was
I had forgotten about it, actually. Remember that. But so that it's not only what NIHERST is doing. NIHERST has a fantastic record in science communication and the promotion of science. It was set up for that purpose. But the academy itself would want to support any such kind of initiative coming out of any organization. For instance, the engineers in Trinidad, for instance, are now on a program where they're recording and archiving engineering achievements, not only of the individual engineers, but of the actual projects, because for a small country, we have done some very significant engineering projects. So the Academy's, one of its functions is, of course, to support and recognize excellence in academic, in scientific and technological endeavor. So we do it Caribbean-wide. The Academy is not only about CARICOM, it's the entire Caribbean basin. So that would be the reason why we're supporting it. But fundamentally, society gets, I would say, 90% of everything that we benefit from has come out of science and technology. But because it is so commonplace, we take it for granted. We just never bother with it. We all talk about the need to encourage art and culture, poetry and music and so forth. Because these creative people, we recognize that those creative people need a sense of community, need encouragement, need support. We don't seem to think of scientists that way. But scientists are also creative, and they also suffer from all the insecurities and the need for a community of like minds in order to encourage them and to be creative. And the Academy recognizes that, and all academies are set up for that kind of purpose, to give that sense of community and support, so that. And the Caribbean Academy is no different in that way in what we do. We also organize conferences, and I'm sure our PRO would not want me to be on radio without saying that we are having a conference, and it's going to be in Barbados at the beginning of November, and it's on climate change, because that's a topic that is very important to what's happening to us as a society. and the need to start thinking about what's coming over the horizon. That's really the value of having a group of people in an organization like CAS, or to follow, to support the activities of our scientists, because this is your brain's trust that looks. This is your brain's trust that looks at the future. I would say you need a group of people who can look over the horizon and tell you what's coming technologically, because it's going to affect you, or whether it's going to be a tsunami or whether it's fair weather. You need to be aware of it so that you can plan for it, and that's what your scientific community does. Apart from the fact that if you are to develop from where you are, everybody concerns themselves with what they call the bottom line. Everybody wants to know how to improve our economic circumstances. But unless you know why, it's very difficult to develop and adapt know-how. You can buy know-how, but you have to have the capability to understand, know why things are happening, why things are the way they are, or why the know-how works. And know-how has always existed well in advance of the science that explains it. For centuries, people solved their problems. When they solve their problems, they call that technology. But why the technology works, you need to understand that, and that's where science comes in. However, and this is the point that Christian is making, is that in today's what is called knowledge society, and this, I think about the middle of the last century, it started to happen. Science and technology kept coming closer and closer together in terms of the technology was followed very quickly by the scientific why. But somewhere around the middle of the last century, I put it at 1947, when we developed the transistor itself, technology started coming out of science. And today, almost all the technology we have is coming directly out of the knowledge of science. So it's no longer that we are now doing things, solving our problems, and then the scientists are coming and explaining why. The scientists are predicting where the technology should go. And that leads to the point that Christian is making. If we are to live in such a world, we have to develop our scientific capability. We must encourage more people to become intimately connected with science. So it's no longer an esoteric option, an ivory tower activity. It is directly related to our future economic benefit that we have, and foster a group of people who are very, very clued in to science. So science now has become intimately involved with our daily lives. It always produced things for us, but now in order for us to move forward and the things that we want, we must understand science very, very concretely.
Well, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking this is so interesting, and it's such a shift in gears for me, because usually we speak with people from the arts community and arts, and we talk about arts and theatre and this kind of thing, and they talk about the lack of support. But here now, you're telling me about the science community here in Trinidad, that you need the support, and I guess we take it for granted that there will always be a steady stream of interest, and the scholars will be headed in that direction. But now you're telling me that's not the case, and they're human beings and they need support systems too. Everybody needs a little support, encouragement, motivation, and I'm so glad that you're here to point that out.
But more than that is the young generation. Because
of course,
if we're going to build that capability, it's not the older scientists. Mm-hmm. They're on their way out. So if we and this is a global phenomenon and a global concern actually.
Yes.
Other than perhaps in some of the emerging economies, there is in the old world, for want of a better word, and certainly in our world, there is a global lack of young people and interest and participation, engagement in science. So more young people are doing degrees. I mean, it may seem counterintuitive to the outsider, but it actually is the case statistically, that that the capability is not there. They're not going into the sciences for whatever reason, possibly because business and money, and so they do degrees in a lot of business degrees, a lot of finance, law, and so that the drive now is not simply that this is critical, we need that. The other problem is we don't have the matching concomitant interest coming in from the next generation. to build the capability. So there's a disconnect, huge disconnect, which China, I suspect, doesn't have that problem. And India and other people who know about these things will be able
Well, it's funny. We're talking about science and technology. Mr. Charles, you're talking about technology, and I know for a fact that the world is jumping on board the technological bandwagon. Everybody wants to have all the fancy gadgets, but you need to have the people who can explain the why, right, and connect the dots. And this is what you're talking about here by way of science. And I want to say thank you very much. Time goes by so quickly when we talk about interesting things. But you know what? This is just a start. I know that you were here before, just not on my show. And I want to say thank you very much for being with us. Do come back anytime. Would you like to share with us some parting words, Mr. Charles?
Well, we talked about, Christiane talked about China, and she mentioned India as well, but the Prime Minister of India, Pandit Nehru, made a decision right after India became independent to promote the top 3% of all university graduates in science and develop them. That at a time when India had all kinds of social problems. But that was a statesmanlike decision to invest in the scientific development of India. And in 1975, I spoke to the Indian Academy of Sciences, and I said to them, in 25 years, if India keeps its head above its social problems, it will be a world power. And I have lived to see it happen. And that was because that investment was made in science.
Enough said.
Fantastic note to end on. Very moving.
Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Charles, and you, Christiane. Any
so
closing words?
Well,
you're here. Well, we've been here to talk about the fact that the call for nominations is in effect. It's underway, and if you would like to make nominations, once again, you tell us.
Yeah, please. There are calls for nominations for awards in science and technology through NIHERST, and you can check us on www.nihirst.gov.tt. You can email us for further information at awards@nihirst.gov.tt, and then you can call us on 622-7880. We'll be happy to answer any questions, field any kinds of queries you have, and don't be shy. Don't feel I don't know if you know people. Just get in touch. Look at you can download the forms. You can ask us for support, and we'll be more than happy to steer you in the direction you need to go, and just tell us who they are, because we need your eyes and ears. We don't know who they are.
Exactly. When is the awards function happening?
Well, the deadline for the nominations is the 20th, and then we have the incredibly rigorous and I should say transparent process of selection and evaluation of the candidates. And I guess we haven't set the date for the actual ceremony, but sometime in the middle of the year. It will take a while because the whole the process of selection and rigorous.
Please keep us posted.
Absolutely.
So that we can impart the information.
Please, members of the public, just think about it. It doesn't take much to think about who you know.
Yeah, surely. And we have lots of parents who listen to us every single day, and I'm sure that they would, try to impart some of this information to the youngsters who are still trying to figure out where they want to be.
As you said that, I should just say we have 2 awards. I think it was said for junior scientist and junior engineer, and they are the young professionals. So they don't have to be the people at the stature that you imagine. The older scientists who have accumulated a lot of expertise. They can be young, up and coming ones who've done for their experience so far. Their age, they're under 35, but they are clearly on a trajectory. If you know them, they could come in too.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Hollis Clark and Charles, handwriting. And, of course, lovely Christiane Francois. They've been with us for the past 26 minutes to be specific, and that's a great use of time, I have to say. And we urge you to keep on listening as we stay on the pulse of what's going on in TNT, trying our best to add quality to your life. And we'll do it together, my friends. Heartbeat 103.5, radio for women and the men who love them.
Music, magic, memories, and more. Heartbeat Radio 103.5 FM.